Welcome, Internet, to Driving and Dragons. Today we are driving through the night and talking about what it means to be evil in TTRPGs as we continue going over alignment, its meanings, and its roles in our games. There isn't a lot in the way of updates on the Dodge or the Nissan at the moment, but the first poll on how to restore the Dodge Dart is up on my Patreon. If you are a paid patron, you can vote on the overall design of the car, determining if I should go with a straight factory restoration, a Saturday night cruise car, a straight up red light drag machine, or a modernized comfortable road trip car. I'll leave that poll live until we get the car on the road to Alabama. So a month or two at the most, depending on the state of New York, if you want to have your say in the path we take with that restoration. Remember to follow me on Patreon to see what's coming up in the pipeline and where paid members get to automatically be entered to win the car when the time for sign up gets here. In the meantime, like, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the topic. So let's dig into the nature of evil. In a word, evil is self-centered. Not simply selfish, but self-centered. The only thing that truly matters to an evil character is themselves, and it goes beyond simply doing what's best for me, and it crosses over into doing what is best for me to the exclusion of how it affects others. Most people have the mistaken impression that evil is easy to play. After all, you just do whatever you want. But it isn't that simple. Evil characters think of themselves and themselves only. Even if they are doing something good, the intent is for themselves. The evil character defends his friends because they're his friends, and you're trying to harm them, and that's both an inconvenience to the character and a grave insult that you dared to go after their friend. Key word, their. Evil is possessive, evil is jealous, evil is controlling. One common misconception that I see online is that evil isn't merely selfish. Doing what is best for you or being indifferent to others is neutral. Being evil requires active harm to others. Other than that, evil does harm because they enjoy it. They do evil for evil's sake. Both of those are, if not incorrect, they're at least incomplete. In the case of the first one, where we say that it isn't merely selfish, doing what is best for you or being indifferent towards others is neutral, it requires active harm. In that case, it fails because indifference to what harms others is in itself an evil. Remember that alignment is both a 10,000-yard view and is also an examination of the core nature of an individual, not merely their surface reasoning. A character who always chooses what is best for them, regardless of the harm caused to others, is evil, regardless of whether or not that harm is caused directly by them. The real difference between a selfish, neutral character and an evil one is generally one of scale. The neutral character is indifferent or willing to harm only to a point, whereas the evil character is willing to go much further and much more actively in the case of harming others. And this also brings us up to the second point, where evil does evil simply for the sake of evil. This is also a misunderstanding and a misalignment. Sure, there may be some deity or force of nature in the game that is dedicated to evil as a philosophical concept. In fact, a lot of times your demons and devils and your evil gods are, in fact, kind of a force of nature or something that is philosophically evil for the sake of evil. However, when an evil character does, quote, evil for the sake of evil, unquote, it isn't because it is evil, it is because they get something out of it. This may be as simple as a sadist putting his own personal pleasure and need to dominate above the harm it causes to others. He is doing it for his pleasure, not simply to do evil. The same evil character may also rescue orphans, not because he's good or because he cares about orphans, but because he was abused in an orphanage and this is his personal revenge against his past. A torturer is evil as well, even if he takes no pleasure in what he does. Why? Because his method is to deliberately inflict harm on a helpless being in his control for the sake of gain. The scale could work in the opposite direction here, where a neutral torturer would use only methods that cause no lasting harm, such as waterboarding or use of magic that simply causes pain in the moment. But even this would need to be a tremendous benefit to others to outweigh the act of deliberately inflicting that psychological torment on another being who is helpless. At its core, the difference between evil and neutral is the neutral person considers what is best for themselves and weighs it against what is good for others and what harm is caused. An evil character simply considers what is best for them and weighs it against the potential consequences of the actions they would take. This is where we come across another major failing of people who mistakenly believe that evil is somehow easy to play and do whatever I want whenever I want pass. No matter how evil a character is, they aren't stupid. Even the ones who are stupid are still not stupid to the point of, I don't care about the consequences. Evil characters still make the same cost-value assessments that everyone else does. The evil thief isn't going to steal something when getting caught is likely and the penalty is severe unless there is a personal reward that strongly and greatly exceeds that risk. And even then, they're going to do everything they possibly can to mitigate the risk that they're personally exposed to. Well, I'm evil is not a good excuse for a character doing something that is obviously against their interests and has a cost that outstrips the gain. An evil party member stealing from another comes to mind. Sure, they may try to skim a little bit off the top with treasure splits. They may even steal some items that they feel they can get away with, and the loss would remain largely unnoticed. But they're not going to go steal the fighter's powerful magic sword so they can sell it off or even so they can use it themselves. Losing their party, which holds value to them in some capacity, and potentially making powerful enemies out of allies is not worth the gain of a single magic sword. The math doesn't math. Even the most mentally unbalanced, deranged sociopaths don't just kill people in the street where they know they're going to get caught. Typically, they're outdone by their own egos and a need to be recognized for their ability to commit their crimes over long periods of time and not get caught. This brings me to the classes of evil character that people tend to feel they find an exception in: the objectively insane and the misguided noble villain. These are not exceptions, they're merely aberrations. Starting with the easier of the two, the objectively insane. My character is so insane he doesn't recognize consequences. He does this crazy stuff because he's seeing demons everywhere and believes he has to fight his way out even though he's just killing villagers. Let's say your character has a complete psychotic break and no longer recognizes reality. Therefore, they do all kinds of things I just said evil characters don't do, like murder hobo out on people without any regard for the consequences or likelihood of being caught. There's a very simple solution for this that can be found in Call of Cthulhu. Is this a temporary insanity? Okay, hand your character over to the GM. They're an NPC until they regain their sanity. Oh, you are a great role player who can be trusted not to metagame this? Okay, your actions are determined by die rolls now. Is the psychotic break permanent? Congratulations, the character is now an NPC. As a player, you represent the rational mind of your character. That character no longer has a rational mind for you to represent. Your character lost their mind, which means they lost you. And yes, they are still evil. In fact, they may be the purest form of evil because they are now completely dominated by their id, which represents only instinctive drives and desire of the self above all else. In case you're not aware, this is in fact the psychological way to grasp an evil alignment. Evil characters are, generally speaking, driven by their id. They are heavily controlled by the subconscious part of their mind that is composed of instinctive drives and desires, totally focused on themselves, totally self-centered. Once you cross the line where there is no more conscious control of these instinctive drives and desires, you are no longer a player character. At best, you're an animal, and thus an NPC. Otherwise, you're completely controlled by your subconscious and your drives, which means there's no conscious decisions to be made by a player, and thus an NPC. So what about the well-intentioned, unwitting fool, the misguided villain? This is where scale comes in, as well as the objective nature of alignment. Evil is objectively defined as selfishness, cruelty, lack of compassion, and disregard for the well-being of others in the face of personal gain and pleasure. The well-intentioned or misguided fool is evil because of the severity of his miscalculation and because of his deliberate ignorance of evidence to the contrary. He is self-centered, slavishly adhering to the determinations that he has made to the exclusion of other considerations. Take Thanos, specifically the MCU Thanos, where they desperately tried to make him some kind of sympathetic, thinks he's the good guy, moral crusader. In comic books, Thanos is just crazy and obsessed with death. And also evil. Thanos is evil. He has decided that wiping out half the universe is how to solve a problem that he decided exists, and that he is determined this is the only way to accomplish it with no input from anyone else. He is evil and his actions are evil, regardless of the greater good he feels he is going to achieve. His methods and his inability or apathy towards considering any alternative makes him evil. His goal and his vision are more important than finding the way that is optimal. And that brings us to the crux of these complex moral quandaries where alignment falls apart. Aside from the fact that with very few exceptions, a single decision does not determine alignment, and that just because a person is of one alignment doesn't mean they never make any decisions that could be more akin to another alignment, the struggle and the thought process are really what matters here. The good character will do all they can to mitigate harm to others, putting themselves last. They will risk failure or worse to find the way that loads the loss and sacrifice onto their own shoulders. Evil characters will not. They will seek the best outcome for themselves first. They will seek to find the advantage for themselves first. They will strive to ensure their goals, their ends, and that their desires are met. If others are also served by this process, so be it. That's what I have on evil this time around. But I do have one other alignment-related tidbit for you. This is a brief response to a few comments that have been posted on some of my other alignment videos. There are various alignment tracking tools out there. I've used them myself, and some of them are better than others. I typically do not recommend them. If you do want to use them, they should be kept behind the screen, by which I mean completely out of player knowledge. And here's my reasoning. Let's say you use an actual chart to plot alignment. You have it all graphed out, and you put pins in for your PCs. They make decisions, and at the end of each session, you adjust their pins. And if they move out of their alignment, you take the appropriate action in game, whether that's calling for atonement or changing their alignment or giving them some kind of warning in a certain amount of time to shift their mind or whatever. But you take action based on where these pins are. If your players know about this system, there is now a bare minimum, a subconscious metagame influence on their play. At worst, they will outright use that chart system as a crutch to buy an out of alignment decision that they can then earn back with extra focus on playing their alignment later. When you add a metagame element or tool, you incentivize metagame exploitation. In addition to this, there are potential social implications. If the calculation is objective, you really have the metagaming poured on. Ha ha, I kill all the orphans and steal the donations. That's only 10 evil points, and since I'm a paragon of goodness, it only drops me to the bottom of good, and I still get to be a paladin. If you make it subjective, you get the hurt feelings and cries of favoritisms. I lost my alignment because I killed all those orphans, But Phil stole from the shopkeeper and he's still good. I call BS. This is because Phil brought flaming hot Cheetos and beer. Honestly, I just like the good old common sense tool. I know when you're BSing me and when you're trying to pull a fast one. And we both know when your good character has just been a rotten jackass with good written on his character sheet. So if you do want to use some kind of alignment tracker, just listen to what Gandalf said and keep it secret, keep it safe. That's all I got for now on this one. Get ready to bust out your hover bike and your half-faced helmets because next time we're talking about the law. Now, leave a comment or you're going to get 5 years in an ISO cube. See you guys next time.